think peeps, I'm back on a never ending treadmill of FPL. I've been up all night. I had to stay up to 1 o'clock for the deadline because I knew that the leakers would be telling everyone who was playing and who was not playing. And as it turned out, Marmouche was one of those not playing. It's very annoying to have to do that, extremely annoying. Like I said, I've been up all night. I'm very tired now. It's like middle of Sunday morning here. Sun's out, makes it very hard for me to go back to sleep. I'm just going to have to stay up all day, feeling really spaced out, and just sleep at night time like I normally do. Because all this, because we cannot trust the deadline because of leakers. Now I've just been on a show, excellent show, with FPL Have a Beer and Stevo. It was a pretty impromptu show. We didn't even know until an hour before it that me and Stevo were going to be on. We talked about leaks, and I'm going to play you a little clip of what I had to say on that stream. So I'll play you that now. Hopefully this is going to work.
Every single week now, and they're getting earlier and earlier. It doesn't matter what time they put the deadline, people are leaking just before the deadline, and it's just getting ridiculous. They're ruining the game. And the clubs, they call themselves, like that one calls himself Main Road, but would Pep or Man City want the team to be known early by the likes of him? They wouldn't, would they? He's profiting from this.
Is that where the leaks?
He's getting huge amounts of followers. You've got FPL Tony charging money that no doubt all the mainstream content creators subscribe to, worshipping him, hanging on his every word. They're like running the entire community now. The entire community is based around them, and they're nothing but worthless vermin. And the time to get rid of them is now. And FPL really need to stand up and stamp it out. It's every single week now, and they're getting earlier and earlier. It doesn't matter what.
Sorry there, peeps, I went on repeat. But it is very, very frustrating. Very frustrating indeed. And even the lazy FPL newsletter that now goes out to everybody picked up on all this. Are they paying FPL Tony as well for these leaks? Because they got their newsletter out telling everybody basically the team sheet for the Man City match, and it's just ridiculous. And FPL really do need to stamp it out because it's extremely unfair on people in other time zones. I'm thinking now the fairest option is to go back 2.5 or 3 hours before the deadline, which I believe would cut out 90% of these leaks. It would also mean people could have plenty of hours to finalise their team in the preceding day without having to fear that they were missing out on all these leaks that are really important. I mean, supposing, for example, that today Haaland had scored a hat-trick, a lot of people, especially in this part of the world, would not have even known he was playing, whereas other people who had the team sheet in advance of time would have possibly got 45, 50, 60 points on a triple captain on Haaland, for example. As it turned out, the team leaks are actually detrimental this week. I mean, it even hurt myself, because I heard that Mamouche wasn't starting and took a hit to take out Mamouche for Vissa, ended up costing me points. But the whole situation is just ridiculous, and it's creating a completely unfair playing field where people like myself are forced to either stay up half the night or go to bed early and risk missing out on important information. And really, FPL can stop this. They can stop it by putting the deadline back 2.5 or 3 hours. A lot of people say they should move the deadline to game time, but that doesn't work either, because if you've got one game starting 2 hours before the 3 o'clock kickoffs, you just get all the leaks would be for the 3 o'clock games instead. So the only way really to stop it is to move it back 2.5 or 3 hours before the deadline, which would be about 10 o'clock in the morning UK time. I think that's acceptable, and that would benefit everybody apart from these people that are profiting from the leaks and others that try to gain an unfair advantage by taking advantage and trying to find every single possible leak they can. I think some of these people put more effort into finding leaks than they do in their actual FPL teams. And what we want is for the game to be won by people that are better at playing FPL, not better that are people that are better at finding leaks. Anyway, peeps, on to the usual show. Getting high blood pressure today, honestly. This is what happens when you stay up all night. No wonder night shift workers pop their clogs years before other people. You know, I'd be surprised if I'll tell you what, peeps, any day above ground is a good day, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not above ground by tomorrow, because the stress is absolutely unbelievable. Anyway, so far I've got a red arrow, but I've only had 3 players, and the only one that failed was Visser. Now, if I'd gone to bed early like I should have done, Visser would have been my moosh, and I would have been 1 point, but I would have been 4 points better off because I wouldn't have taken a hit. But hopefully Visser can get some points in the next 2 game weeks, and I think my moosh has now become a problem that would have needed to be taken out with a hit this week anyway, probably. So the assistant manager failed, 5 miserable points, but to be honest, I'm happy. I am happy about that, because it would have been far worse if City had won 5-0 and all the leakers and those that profited from it, or thought they were going to profit from it, got lots of points. You know, if Haaland had got a hat-trick, all those that have had operated on the leaks and brought him in and triple captained him or whatever would have got a massive score. So I'm quite pleased in a way, but it did end up 0-0, because obviously I had no City attackers. And I would have got like an extra 5 points from Guardiola, but other people would have got untold points from the likes of De Bruyne and Haaland if City had done what they were supposed to, which is thrash Southampton. I mean, Pep really messed up, didn't he, to be honest? He thought he could bring in a half-fit Haaland, a useless Foden and the rest of them, and just walk all over Southampton. Well, it didn't work out that way, did it? And now City have a problem, because the next match is 3 days after the FA Cup game, and luckily for us, those of us that like to play fairly, the City game is the last in the game week. So people are going to go into the game week with De Bruyne, Haaland and other players having no idea whether they will actually start that Bournemouth match, and it is a bit of a rotation lottery. So what's going to happen? Are people going to remove De Bruyne now for Palmer? I suspect a lot might. They might try and get Saka in, or they might wait for the early Aston Villa clean team sheet and bring in one of those players, because that's how it seems to work these days. You wait for the leaks and bring in a player for that side. Anyway, like I said, only 3 players have played. Annoying, I've got 14 points on the bench. I played the right keeper last week, probably played the wrong one this week, although it really was nothing in this, absolutely nothing. You know, I've played Henderson because a lot of people have got Munoz. Tottenham will be heavily rotating. I did expect Bournemouth, who are a reasonably good attacking side, to score against Villa. Unfortunately, they didn't, but you can't win them all. And like I said, I picked the right keeper last week, probably picked the wrong keeper this week. Can't be helped, but I don't think it's through any fault of my own, basically. Same with Rodgers over Sarr. I think Sarr was better this week. Didn't turn out this way. Now, we're going to go and have a quick look at the Content Creator League. So a lot of you are doing poorly this week. Not everyone is. I've seen a couple of good teams today. But a lot of people are doing poorly. And we shall see. Now, Mark Sevens, who hates leaks, says he hates leaks on his show. What did he do? He triple captain Haaland. So, you know, you would do though, wouldn't you? To be fair to him and to everyone else, even myself, you know, even I acted on these leaks. Because if they're out there, you are going to act, aren't you? If you know that Haaland is playing for certain, you are going to make changes. And it's just unfortunate that a lot of people around the world aren't in that position where they can take advantage of these sort of things, which is why they really need to move the deadline backwards some more to safeguard those of us in other time zones and allow us to at least be able to sleep at night, because currently it's just a joke. Anyway, triple captain Haaland failed, but is still leading this week thanks to bringing in Sade and having Ruben Diaz and Guardiola. So double City defence, it turns out, has been the way to go in the last few weeks. Has been the way to go. I do honestly think triple captain Haaland was a fantastic move. Absolutely fantastic. If I'd have been able to get to Haaland and have my triple captain, I would have done exactly the same, because either that or De Bruyne. Because when else are you going to play it, basically? But to be honest, Haaland wasn't exactly super duper before his injury, was he? And he's come back without any previous. He hasn't even come off the bench, has he? And Pep's put him in there because he's desperate to get him fit and up to speed for the FA Cup final. But it's backfired on him completely. Backfired completely. And it's backfired on people that brought him in too, isn't it? But you can understand why they've done it. You can understand it. So he's ahead this week, but he has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people playing, which is why I'm not too worried at this stage, because I've only had 3 of my players in action. Mark's twin has exactly the same points, exactly the same transfers, but different captains. So Az has done well with his captain. He brought Sade in. Verbruggen, back from the grave. I've seen a few people benching Verbruggen this week. He knew something we didn't. Who is his reserve keeper? Raya. Pretty interesting call, isn't it? Playing Verbruggen with everyone quite high on Wolves, but first clean sheet Brighton have kept in a long time, I think. So Az is doing well. Now Harry, I did actually watch some of his stream today, took a -8. Obviously he knew the team sheet when he did it, so he played Mateta to Evan Nielsen, which was an interesting choice. They do have 2 good fixtures coming up, though, Bournemouth, but they are a bit on the beach. But so are their opponents in the next couple of weeks, so it could be a good transfer long term. Rodgers to De Bruyne obviously didn't work out too well. And Marmouche to Visser, which also didn't really work out. He avoided Chris Wood. And he also didn't go for Cunha, who actually fared even worse, didn't he? Even worse. So I took a -8. He is on a bench boost. So he wouldn't have wanted to keep Marmouche for sure once he found out that he wasn't starting. I guess it's a fair enough bench boost. Would he have put these players on the bench? I guess he probably would have done. So he's got off to a very good start on his bench boost with 5 from Konza. So he could yet have a decent bench boost, but he is coming out of a -8, which has not paid off in regards to the actual players that he bought in. He has got double Forest defence this week, which could go well, couldn't they? But the way the week's going, Leicester will probably win 2-0. Right, Andy, 29, was very close to bringing Haaland in. He wanted to. Well, he said he wanted to, and he was making it look like it was a last-minute decision. Whether he really was, or whether it was just for dramatic effect, we will never know. He too benched Rodgers like I did. Started Martinez over Raya. And it's a bit annoying everyone else started Martinez and I benched him, but it was the other way around last week. Mbeumo did reward his captainess at least, didn't he? But they were expecting more than a 1 goal at Ipswich, I suspect. Again, he's played 5 players. I've only played 3. Bakar, very similar team to my own Bakar. He went Marmouche to Visser, as I did. But he didn't own Mateta, so he had less reason to take a hit, I suspect. So Conster did well for him. He benchmarked Rodgers as well. It'd be interesting to see if we get an unexpected benching from anyone where we get Rodgers off the bench. It looks unlikely, but you never know. He's playing Livramento like I am. And he also played Henderson over Martinez like I did. So that makes me feel a bit better. I'm not the only one. I think it was a sensible call to play Henderson, to be quite frank, especially if you don't own Munoz. If I owned Munoz, I would have played Martinez over Henderson. So most people here do seem to be captaining Bueno. Fabio on 26. I think he's on assistant manager. He played it on Guardiola like I did, as you would. It's the trouble with these chips. There's a lot of randomness involved that you cannot have any real control over. On paper, that's as clear a win as you are going to get in any assistant manager game week whenever you choose to play it. And some people get rewarded and others don't, and it is purely down to luck. There's no reason why City should not have been able to batter Southampton today. None at all, really, apart from that useless prick, Pep. So, what have we got here? So he's got Rare in goal, Munoz, Williams. So another one without Wood. Am I the only one who bought Chris Wood this week? You saw me with my streams last week. Oohing and ahhing over Chris Wood. And he was my one transfer. Unfortunately, staying up for the leaks, it's kind of spoilt it a bit because I was quite happy just having Wood and not having Visser and Cunha. I'd have been looking good, but now I have actually ended up with that little prick Visser. So mainly it was a defensive move, to be quite frank, because I knew everybody else was bringing in Visser. He did look good on paper. I don't think it was a mistake. It's turned out badly, but I don't think it was a mistake because Visser's been doing so well lately, and Brentford did have Ipswich and it did cover me. And like I said, I've got Wood is now my attacking option. Not that highly owned, Chris Wood. Not that highly owned in the echelons where I operate. As we see, most people went for Visser or Cunha. But we shall see. Maybe Wood was the obvious answer that most people missed. We shall see. Now, Joe took a -4. Obviously, again, reacting to the news. He brought in, who did he bring in? He brought in De Bruyne for Gordon, sensible, and took out Marmouche for Visser, obviously on the news, which meant he's kept Mateta, who will probably outscore Visser, Wood, and Cunha combined, because that's the way FPL works. That's the way it works. Another with Henderson in goal. Played Bradley. You already had Bradley, obviously. I mean, the manager's already said Bradley's going to start, hasn't he? So he's doing reasonably. He's got only 4 of his have played. So it's all still to play for a lot of people, although there are some teams who have played a lot more than 3. Now, next, Wag. Now, you'd think Wag, who does not have Man City players, you'd think Wag would be doing very well this week, wouldn't you? Unfortunately, that is not the case. Because although City players haven't done that well, their defenders have. Although Wag did start Conser and Rodgers. So she started Conser and Rodgers, but is still not doing great because she captained Visser. A logical call, I think, captaining Visser. If you don't own Bueno, like she doesn't, and don't own City players, then I think he was a fair captaincy shout, wasn't he? A fair shout against Ipswich, but it's failed. She's 1, 2, 3, 4, another with 5 that have played, and a kind of middling score so far. But she does own Palmer and Bowen. So there are differentials in play, and has Williams to come as well. But the good thing, of course, for her point of view, is not owning City players means she does not have that headache next week when they play Bournemouth, because it is a real headache. It is a real headache. She's just dipped out of the top 100k, so he's doing pretty well, as is everybody here. I mean, late riser, I think's bottom in the overall, 359k, and he's also bottom for this week. Bottom a lot, isn't he, lately? Bottom a lot. So what did he do? Only had 3 play, which is reasonable for him. So he's not really doing badly this week at all, is he? Captain Visser, like Wag did. So that's confirmation there, but it's not a bad option. You know, it made sense. It made sense. All of them did. Wood, Cunha, Visser, De Bruyne, Haaland, all good captains, and all failed. Every single one of them failed. So you don't beat yourself up, because it's not something you've done wrong. It's just such randomness at the moment. Ruben Diaz, 9 points. Someone did actually say earlier in the week that a City defender was actually a very good triple captain choice this week. I'd never do it, because it only takes 1 goal to ruin it. But, you know, I guess the upside's not quite there, is it? Like it is with picking a Haaland or somebody. So that's basically it from this crowd for the Saturday. Again, Marcus shot to the lead like he has for the last 4 or 5 weeks. You know, I mean, imagine what he would have got if Haaland had in fact scored a couple of goals. You know, City are put in one of those 7 or 8-0 performances against Southampton that teams can sometimes do against Southampton. Imagine it. He'd be on about 80 now, wouldn't he? And the rest of us, and all those poor devils who slept through the deadline and didn't know that Haaland was playing, the ones that had him, triple captain him, would have been in cloud cuckoo land now, wouldn't they? Absolutely ridiculous. Now, let's see. Am I the only one who owns Chris Wood? Ridiculous if I am. Ridiculous. Oh, Az has got him. Me and Az. The 2 amigos. We've both got Chris Wood, but we're the only ones. None of the FPL review boys have got him. And the reason is stats. You know, his stats have looked awful. To be frank, they've looked awful the entire season, but it hasn't stopped him scoring lots of goals. Admittedly, he's in poor form now, which is why review won't recommend him. But it's Leicester. So we just never know. We just never know. Teams do go in and out of form, and often it'll be playing one of these weaker teams that puts a team back in form. So we shall see, peeps. We shall see. You know, let's go and see what's happening on Reddit, because I really am exhausted. You know, often I go out on a Sunday afternoon. Today, I don't know. I'm like, literally, I feel like a zombie. You know, if I went and lied down in the graveyard, I would not be the liveliest person in there today. You know what I mean? I'll tell you what, when I saw that walking video with Steve-O, and they had all those nice angels and crosses and all these big, like, I don't know what they call them. My brain's not working, but like memorial things, statues and all that. After we had the earthquake in 2010, pretty big earthquake, 7 on the Richter scale, I went for a walk down the graveyard the next day, and it was carnage. It looked like something out of the apocalypse. Honestly, it was like something out of The Walking Dead. There were like broken angels lying on the floor with their heads off, and broken crosses and everything. Honestly, it looked like a zombie apocalypse or some kind of demonic apocalypse. You know, all these broken angels all over the floor. Some of the graves were actually broken open. You know, people were seeing bones down there. I'm not joking, literally. It was like the weirdest thing I've ever seen that day. And if it happened now, I'd be there with my camera, peeps. And you'd be on the, you know, you'd see it on the show. So what we want, bring on another 7 point, make it a 7.5 this time, and give us something to go for a good walking FPL video. Because I tell you what, that's why there's no headstones down there now. You know, they wouldn't put them back afterwards. It's like completely flat now. Anyway, peeps, back to, I'd say back to reality, but that actually was reality, you know. Had a whole week and a half of queuing up for water and food and all that type of bollocks. You know, very interesting time here in Christchurch it was. Where am I now? Going to the wrong place. And it was actually the only time in Christchurch when people were bloody friendly. You know what I mean? It's the only time I met my neighbours in 25 years of living here was when we had the earthquake and everyone was queuing up for water and that together. And it was a great community spirit. And did it last? Did it bollocks? In fact, those pricks next door last night, if it wasn't for the football, I'd have been awake anyway, because they're having one of their druggy parties till 6 a.m. You know what I mean? Madness, peeps. Anyway, look at this. Thank God for that, someone said on Reddit. Season end. And I'm starting to agree with them. Starting to agree with them. Although I will miss talking to you lot and doing the content, except it's very possible there is going to be a fantasy competition for the World Club Champs. And my channel, peeps, will be on it. You know what I mean? I will be there giving you the info because Auckland, who are a team, Auckland, right, only formed this year, and they got put in the Australian League. You know, the, I can't even remember what it's called now. Like I said, my brain's not working. The, whatever it's called, the Aussie League. And they won it. First year in the league, the A-League, that's it. And they won it. So now they are representing the whole of Oceania in the World Club Champs. And do you know who they're playing? There's 3 games. They're drawn in the same group with Bayern Munich, Benfica, and Boca Juniors. Incredible. So they're going to be playing those 3 matches. And the good news is it's on at a decent time in this country because it's played in America. And I'm so excited for that World Club Champs. We've got Chelsea in it as well, because they won the Champions League or something a few years ago. I don't know why they're in it, but they are in it. And the teams are going to be taking it very seriously. There's hundreds of millions of dollars at stake in this thing. And I think it's the first time they've had this like World Cup type format, 32 teams. It's going to be fantastic. I'm so looking forward to it. And it starts in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, you know. So get their bloody FPL out of the way. Get those FPL leakers out of the way and send them off to the States and see if they can leak Auckland's team. Well, good luck with that, peeps. Good luck with that. So hopefully there is going to be an fantasy tournament for that. It's, you know, at the moment we're not thinking about the summer, are we? But in a few weeks when there's no football, we're all going to be watching that, and that's going to be fantastic. Fantastic, peeps. I tell you what, Auckland, right? They're only a year old. If they play like they did when they started in the A-League, I can see them upsetting a few teams, you know, because teams are going to take them lightly. Bayern Munich, you know, but these teams have had hard seasons. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they cope, these European teams, how they cope with it all against the mighty Auckland. We shall see. Anyway, the lazy FPL newsletter joining in the leaking, you know. I mean, it's their job, I suppose, to give the news. No, but it's all wrong, in my opinion. It's all wrong, the fact that these leakers have now got so much power. I mean, I said on the stream this morning that imagine if you're Pep Guardiola, do you want the Southampton manager knowing 2 or 3 hours before the game that Haaland is starting, because it gives him 2 or 3 hours to formulate an alternative plan? And when the likes of people that call themselves Main Road, even in their name, leak these things that are hurting the club that they supposedly support, all for their own financial gain. And then there's betting involved, big betting syndicates taking advantage of this. It's all corrupt. It's not looking good on the FPL, especially when they go down the slippery slope themselves of sponsoring gambling websites. The whole thing's very murky, and they need to sort it out because it's not on. It's just not on. You know, in American sports and even in Australian rugby league and sports like that, the teams actually have to name their starting lineups 2 or 3 days before the actual game, and they are actually punished if they deviate from those lineups, all to make a level, fair playing field where illegal betting websites, syndicates, and all this type of thing profit from these leaks, as do the leakers themselves. And it is quite sickening to see well-known members of the FPL community fawning all over these characters for leaks, even paying them for leaks. Grubby. Very, very grubby, the whole thing. And it's not good. And FPL do have it in their power to severely limit them by putting back the deadline a few hours. And if they don't do it, then they're basically saying they don't care. And they should care, because it's appalling. Anyway, stuff looking through this. I've said my piece and I'm off because I can't top it. You know what I mean? And so cheers for now then, peeps. So like and subscribe. I'll talk to you in a day or two. You know, like I said, I'm very, very tired. And I am genuinely a bit grumpy with the whole thing. So I'll talk to you all later. And cheers for now then, peeps.